statistic that really jumps out at me. I would never have thought a Spider-Man film would have generated that much attention. I think that you discovered one thing you did discover about the Spider-Man films when they were released is that there were more Spider-Man fans than you ever thought possible. I remember seeing a Spider-Man film that had the entire theater packed, and sometimes fans of the film would go to see it more than once when it was theatrically released. Spider-Man 2 was a film I saw more than once in the theater. And out of the three films that were released previously of Spider-Man, my favorite Spider-Man movie must have been probably Spider-Man 3, because there were two villains in the film, something that had never been attempted before. But I think the reason why they had two villains in Spider-Man 3 was to clue up a lot of things that the original films didn't, Spider-Man's 1 through 2. And they accomplished that, but the thing they really failed at was the end of the film. The end of the film was so confusing. It was really a WTF moment for me, if anything. And then when the statistics of the film were released about how it generated over $2 billion and how it dominated in the box office for a number of weeks, it was hard to believe. They mentioned actually on The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked that the original Spider-Man movies had brought in over $2 billion. So I'm expecting The Amazing Spider-Man to double on that. The key things about this film that really are drawing me in, that didn't draw me in before, are the cast, how great the cast look, how much they look like the original comic book characters, and how Spider-Man is actually being portrayed by an actual British actor, and the Lizard is going to be making his theatrical debut in a Spider-Man film. I think it's going to be a phenomenal addition to the original Spider-Man films, and I wonder, what actors like Tobey Maguire and actresses like Kirsten Dunst are saying about the Amazing Spider-Man. Will they go and see the film when it premieres on the red carpet? Will they be commenting on it for interviews done for radio shows and internet columns? It's going to be interesting to find out what Tobey Maguire especially has to say about the Amazing Spider-Man, given the fact that he didn't sign on for a fourth installment because Sam Raimi wasn't the director. But I can't see why he wouldn't sign on for this, because Mark Webb really seems to have his head in the right place. And hearing the cast speak on how much fun it was making the Spider-Man film and how much they got into their roles, led me to believe that they had a great time shooting this. In 1962, just to give you an idea of how legendary Spider-Man is, 1962, the first Walmart opened its doors, for Christ's sake, and colored television premiered. Spider-Man was one of the first cartoons to actually appear in color on Saturday mornings. And I remember how popular that cartoon was. You can still see that cartoon on Teletoon Retro and Retro Cartoon networks that you're subscribed to either by your satellite or digital cable provider. If you get a chance to see the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon in its original form, definitely take the advantage of that opportunity, because it was phenomenal seeing that. For me, the best Spider-Man cartoon was the 3D one released by Fox Kids. That was the funnest cartoon to watch because that had the mutated Spider-Man in it. It had a lot of villains for the first time, 3D enhanced. It was fun, and the story behind the 3D cartoon that was on Fox Kids was a lot more detailed. The Amazing Spider-Man cartoon from back in the 60s, if you can remember. Back in the 60s cartoon, Spider-Man actually had to develop his own web cartridges from a scientific formula he made in his basement, which is something that was left out of the original Spider-Man films from 2002 to 2007, thank God. Can you imagine if they released The Amazing Spider-Man here in 2012 and you saw the actor having to develop his own web cartridges like he had to do back in the 60s? I know it's something that's not going to be included, but how unorthodox would that be with how advanced movie technology and filming has become over the last 10 years? Something you got to take into consideration about this film is the fact that it's been over 10 years since the original Spider-Man film was released in 2002, the same year that Dwayne Johnson starred as the Scorpion King for Universal Studios. In 10 years, film production has come a long way and become so much more advanced. So I can understand why the visuals and everything are so outstanding and so astonishing. Believe me when I tell you, if you haven't seen the visuals for The Amazing Spider-Man or the trailer, head to our Twitter page at twitter.com/JonathanClarke1. You'll be able to see the trailer, and if I can find it, I will tweet The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked, both for our Twitter and our radio form in its entirety, for you to get a glimpse of what The Amazing Spider-Man is really going to be all about, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. If you haven't seen the visuals, you will not believe how astonishing the special effects look for this. The trailer is on our Twitter page for you to check out. If you haven't played the video game The Amazing Spider-Man, which is available now for the PS3 and Xbox 360 Connect, definitely take advantage of it because it looks astonishing. The video game looks that much appealing. It's unbelievable. Everything about this film seems to be in the right place, and because I'm a fan of bands like Maroon 5 and Green Day, I will check this film out knowing that the same guy who produced those music videos for those bands and those singers had a hand in this film. I think this is going to be the start of a very successful film career for Mark Webb, who has done things theatrically before, but never this way. And as I mentioned, I'm anticipating a battle for the top position to ascend out of the abyss between Batman, Rise of the Dark Knight, and Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man. It's going to be a whole lot of fun watching that battle and how many weeks each film spends at the top position, because I'm expecting a battle between DC and Marvel Comics. This summer has been huge for superhero movies. It started with The Avengers back on May 4th, being one of the most popular theatrical releases. It's going to continue right through to the month of July with the release of Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, and The Amazing Spider-Man. It's hard for me to decipher which film, Spider-Man or Batman, is going to dominate the most. So I'm not going to make a prediction, but I am predicting a battle for the top position between DC and Marvel Comics. Stan Lee is a legend because he was the inspiration behind a lot of things like the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the Hulk. He's done it all. So, they described him as a legend in The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked, and rightfully so, he is. He's been working with Marvel ever since 1960, and, it was a real gamble for him to, get The Amazing Spider-Man released as a comic for the first time in 1962, but he succeeded with that. He's been the inspiration behind everything from X-Men to the Hulk, to the Avengers. He's done it all, and Spider-Man, I think, has been one of his most successful comics he's released, and he's definitely going to benefit from it. I wouldn't be surprised if he made a cameo appearance for the Amazing Spider-Man, like he's done for the original Spider-Man films. The cameos that he makes in the Spider-Man movies are only about 5 seconds each time, but it's always great seeing Stan Lee make an appearance in every film that he's had a hand with. He only has about one line each time that he's making a cameo for whatever superhero movie he's been in. He makes a cameo appearance for The Avengers, by the way, one of the most recent superhero movies to be a huge success for Marvel Comics and Stan Lee's writing abilities over the years. But it'd be fun to see him in The Amazing Spider-Man. I venture to say he's in it because he's been in the past 3. Over 50 years Stan Lee has spent writing, and he's a legend in his own right. Some of my favorite works of art from Stan Lee definitely were X-Men. Reading those comics and seeing that movie was absolutely phenomenal for the first time back in 2002. Definitely the Hulk was a good one. Thor, Captain America. There have been a lot of legendary comics and pieces put together by Stan Lee. So the Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked, referring to Stan Lee as a legendary writer, is definitely justifiable. He is worthy of that accolade, and I think that The Amazing Spider-Man is going to be a huge success for Marvel Comics, and it's going to be a must-see for any Spider-Man fanatic. Usually what I recommend upon seeing a film is that you read reviews and you look up the trailers on video sharing websites like YouTube and Google Video for additional information. Just don't go see a movie based on 1 or 2 reviews. Look up maybe 5 to 6 reviews, 5 to 6 trailers on YouTube and Google Video, and read a couple of summaries throughout the internet. Just don't go by one review. Just don't judge a movie by one theatrical trailer, one review. Look up 5 or 6, then make a judgmental decision based on what you've seen. Just don't go see a movie based on one review or one theatrical trailer, because usually what they'll do is they'll put all the exciting scenes together in about a 45-second trailer, and they'll write the best review possible and only publish the best reviews to entice you, to draw you in to see the film. And that's what Marvel are going to do here with The Amazing Spider-Man. And I wouldn't put it past Marvel to have just put the best scenes together for The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked to draw you in to see it, because what they collaborated for The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked was absolutely thralling seeing it. It was so thralling it was almost too good to be true. So it wouldn't surprise me if Paul McGuire and Rosie Edit and all the editors for The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked just collaborated 22 minutes of the best footage from the film just to entice you to see it. And usually that's what Hollywood will do, and that's what the internet websites do. They publish the best reviews and post the best trailers on video sharing websites like YouTube and Twitter. You can see the trailer on our Twitter page for both the movie and the video game, The Amazing Spider-Man, but just don't base your decision on just one review. Look up about 5 to 6. That's usually what I do upon making the decision to go see a movie. So that's what you should do, and you'll find reviews and trailers for The Amazing Spider-Man scattered all throughout the internet. And if I can find The Amazing Spider-Man Unmasked special, which was a half-an-hour documentary I saw less than 24 hours ago, I will throw it up on our radio forum and our Twitter page for you to check out, because it was a good documentary, whatever the film turns out to be like. It was an amazing documentary. On a scale of 5 stars, I'm definitely rating this film 4 out of 5 stars without even seeing the film, because I'm really anticipating this film